Welcome to the Mind Solution podcast with Sarah Maud. The Mind Solution podcast is for leaders like you who are passionate about well-being in the workplace because you understand that a strong, resilient and happy workforce is the key to your organisation's success. The Mind Solution podcast is here to help you. So join us every week where we'll share with you powerful insights, strategies and know-how to ensure that your people and your organisation are truly thriving from the inside out. Welcome to episode 2 of the Mind Solution podcast. And we're here today to talk about well-being in the workplace and how to make sure that you as an organisation get a clear return on investment. Now, there is a huge focus on mental health in the workplace at the moment, and we know that good health is good business. However, there is also a focus on costs for organisations. And some organisations are having to be more savvy with their budgets because of how COVID-19 has impacted them. So today we are going to be unpacking how organisations like you can strike the right balance when it comes to investing in well-being in the workplace and ensuring that there's a clear return on investment. And to help me do that, I'm delighted to welcome Helga. Helga has enjoyed an international finance career for organisations which include the Co-op, Lloyds Bank, Rolls-Royce, and is currently CFO for a private equity-backed startup. Hello, Helga.
Hello, Sarah. I'm delighted to be here.
Fantastic. We are delighted to have you here. Because this is a really crucial topic, isn't it, at the moment? Really finding a balance between investing in well-being in the workplace and making sure that there's still that focus of attention on the bottom line. And the data tells us that for every £1 invested, there is apparently a £4 return on investment, which is a bit of a no-brainer when it comes to well-being in the workplace, isn't it?
It does sound it, doesn't it?
And we know that when we do things right, we can get a brilliant return on investment and a win-win for both employees and for organisations. But if it doesn't always get done right, if we're perhaps not keeping a focus on the numbers, we can end up perhaps pouring money down the drain or not getting that return on investment. So I'd love to start by getting your thoughts about when it comes to investing in well-being in the workplace, financially, where would you say is a good place to start from in your experience?
As an accountant, I'm always going to look at the data. For me, it is very much about the KPI, so those performance metrics that we look at around our people. But I also look more holistically. So when you talk about people, we talk about absence rates or retention rates. But a business also has to look at what is happening in its operations. So if you're helping your customers and you're receiving phone calls, are you picking up those phone calls in the time that you meant to? Are customer calls getting abandoned? I also look at time to delivery of our your orders. If that's getting extended, those are indications that you've got stretch within an organisation and that your people are perhaps not performing as well as you'd like them to, and then you ask why. As an accountant, as a CFO, my questions into that organisation would be, what is going on?
Absolutely, and I loved what you said there about holistically. We've got to look at things holistically. And you're absolutely right. It's looking at the data. What does the data tell us? But almost kind of reading between the lines of and you use the word stretch. You know, so many people are stretched at the moment, and what impacts that at all levels of your ability to deliver and operations. And it's a big, what's the word I'm thinking of? Big picture view, isn't it?
It is very much. I certainly will look at absence rates, but I'll also have a look at the information that's coming through on perhaps incidents that have taken place in the business that have caused a loss. So have we missed a delivery of an order, or are we behind on a project and a key bit of information hasn't been delivered to progress that and make a decision on? So there are lots of indicators that you can see across a business, and you do have to look beyond some of the key people ones to be able to kind of have a look at it and understand commercially what's happening, and are you getting the right returns as a business from the people that you've invested in.
Absolutely. And I know that we've had some conversations before about risk reporting, and would that feed into that?
Oh, it certainly does, yes. So the incidents are one part of the risk reporting that you'll see. So have you actually had something happen that's caused a loss? So as I say, has a customer had to complain because they've not received the service that they were expecting, because perhaps somebody is off in the team and the other members of the team were too stretched, or they were fully occupied anyway to be able to take those calls? Or are you seeing kind of people that are stretched? And when I say stretched, they're under pressure, and they're perhaps covering for another person in their team or one of their colleagues, and perhaps have taken on an additional workload. And obviously people can do that for a period of time, but over a longer period of time it's not sustainable. So you may get an element of fatigue that's creeping in, and you can see that coming through. And if you're looking at the risks of a business, you hopefully will look at key people and key dependencies on people, and start to make sure that you're not seeing any red flags come up on those indicators.
Absolutely. And you're so right that it's not sustainable, is it? It's not working smartly to have everybody at full capacity where they're stretched and they've got no spare capacity, because you and I both know, because I know that you're a big advocate for health and well-being in general, and especially in the workplace as well, that actually if people aren't performing, they're going to start to drop the ball, mistakes are going to be made, and the quality of some of their decision making is going to be compromised as well, isn't it?
You do see that, and I also think that if you've got every employee at full stretch, then you lose some of the creativity that you need as a business. And people are perhaps not looking at new solutions or new ways of doing things, so you actually lose some of the efficiency that you'd like to encourage within the business operations.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we need to have access to those executive functions in the brain, like creativity, intuition, that ability to look at things from a broader perspective to be able to move forward. And you're right, if everybody's fully stretched, they just don't have that access, do they?
They don't.
And I think that's a really interesting red flag, that perhaps when HR leaders and wellbeing in the workplace leaders are looking at providing that business case, where some of those red flags would be that maybe they hadn't thought about. So I love that you've mentioned that. And something that we hear as well at the moment on the news about GDP and how COVID has impacted the economy and the GDP. Do you think we can relate that to organisations in terms of their people?
I certainly do, yes. If you look at the economy, you've seen headlines around our GDP dropping as a result of the current pandemic. But obviously, you can relate that into a workplace. If you have an unhealthy workplace or an unhealthy workforce, then I don't think you have a healthy business. So flip that, a healthy workforce is a healthy business.
Absolutely. It's not rocket science, is it? But it's taken us quite a long time to recognise that. I think certainly in the last maybe 5 years, we're starting to bridge that understanding that actually, as you say, a healthy workforce comes from having healthy people in it. Now, for organisations who maybe have got a little bit more of a limited budget, maybe they just don't have as much to play with, what do you think is important to get right when it comes to looking to invest in wellbeing solutions?
If I've got a limited budget, I would want to see an investment in something that is going to give me some longevity of benefit.
Mm-hmm.
You can spend a lot of money on quite high profile campaigns and well-being kind of week weeks where you've perhaps got speakers coming in, or you're investing in time for people to go and do mindfulness or some exercise, and find out about healthy eating programs. And they are wonderful, but if you've got a limited budget, my preference would be to provide something into the employees that is going to have a benefit throughout the year. We all know that we have good days and bad days, and just targeting 1 week in a year may catch employees at a time when they actually don't need that support. So my preference has always been to have a look at either like an employee assistance program or something like a Wellbeing portal where employees can access that at their discretion as and when they need it.
Absolutely. And I think you've hit the nail on the head, the longevity, because a lot of organisations do run these wonderful well-being weeks, but we also know in terms of our ability to retain information that you can listen to something, maybe a keynote speaker or a specific webinar, and think, oh yeah, that's really good and that's really interesting. But in order for the individual to create change, they have to take that knowledge and then implement it and really run with it in order to create that shift in their behaviour, don't they?
They do, yes.
Bringing it back to finances. So we've got organisations that, as we say, have maybe got smaller budgets to play with. They're having to be a bit more cost sensitive because perhaps there's things that they're having to spend money on that they wouldn't have forecasted pre-COVID. So again, what would you say that an organisation really needs to get right when it comes to the finances before they start spending money on wellbeing solutions?
Well, sorry, you're absolutely right. Budgets that were put in place pre-COVID are being looked at very closely at the minute. There's a lot of cost consciousness taking place, but also I think there's a realisation that perhaps where money was being spent previously is not necessarily where it needs to be spent now.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm kind of asked for some money to spend, and we don't just allow you to spend to your budget, and never assume that a budget is something that you can just spend. I know.
I know you CFOs, you keep your purse strings closed very tightly.
We do, yes. What I'd be looking to somebody who's bringing, like my HR business partner or HR director, I'd be looking to them to bring me some kind of analysis that would say, look, this is where we are now, this is what's happening, and this is what it is costing us as a business. And that can be through absence rates, or we've lost some key people and unfortunately had to recruit new people and had to pay recruiter fees, or we're seeing operational incidents or underperformance, so we're receiving higher complaints, or we've had a delay in responding to a customer query, or we've a delay in orders, or we've had calls abandoned. All of those will cost a business money, and I'd expect those to be given to me, and then I'd expect them to be given a business case that says, if we spend this money, these are the output that I'd expect, or the benefits I'd expect to see, and for a cost to be put against that. Now that could be, I'm expecting to see a reduction in the number of days lost from absence, or I'm expecting to retain people and have having invested in those people, I'm not kind of losing that investment in people. So there are a lot of measures that I think that anybody preparing a business case can look at across a business, and I'd encourage them to think holistically again.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I guess there's a sort of sense here of cause and effect, and thinking about it business specifically. I know that you work for a finance organisation, but I suppose if I was thinking about a transport industry, if there's an increase in potential accidents on the road because drivers, perhaps their mental health is being compromised, perhaps they're feeling quite anxious, they're not necessarily at their best to make sure that they're able to respond to conditions on the road. So there's going to be an impact there, isn't there? So that real big picture perspective of cause and effect and where this is impacting an organisation financially, and really looking at things at every level, isn't it?
It is indeed. Yes, Sarah.
And it's always interesting as well, isn't it, when it comes to putting together business cases, because I think picking up on what you said there about a budget. So I know myself from my days in human resources, I was given a budget to play with. I didn't realise I couldn't spend it all. Maybe that's where I went wrong in the past. Um, but yeah, not to just assume, right, there's your pot of gold for the year. Um, when it comes to budgeting, maybe the organisations out there, people that are listening, are thinking, well, I really want to do something about well-being in the workplace. I really want to do something about mental health because it's so crucial, but I don't actually have the money in my budget. It's not been forecasted, or I've got a limited budget. What's your view around budgeting and spending money on things that perhaps there hadn't been a budget for in the past?
Well, budgets are not a precise science, and having prepared them and then worked with them and used them, they're always, they tend to be based on past and the past history of what have we spent as a business, where have we invested. And I think we're in a time now where, as we talked about earlier, we actually are probably redefining where we're going to be kind of investing and spending money as a result of the pandemic. I'd always encourage people to come forward with business cases and say, I've spotted an opportunity. I see that this has taken place within the business and it has this impact, and it's costing us this, or it's stopping us delivering this. So it always has a financial impact. And I then encourage them to do a kind of put forward a business case, and show that the investment is going to deliver some benefits, but most importantly, tie that back into some key data from the business. So in the business that I work with, that could be around the customer service, and as I say, you've got phone calls coming into a contact centre. If the contact centre is not working well, our customers are not getting the support and the service that they need. Those are important bits of data for me. And if somebody could demonstrate that actually investing in the well-being would mean that we got a better outcome for our customers, then that should actually either reduce costs or you have customers who are happier. Those are the things I would look to as a CFO.
No, I think that's absolutely brilliant advice. And I think it's really pivotal what you were saying, that actually budgeting is usually done based on the past. And we're in a situation we don't have a reference point because we've never been in this situation. So organisations are having to plan for so much uncertainty because we don't know where we're going to be. But sometimes we don't even know where we're going to be next month, let alone next year, as things keep changing, don't they? What I am curious to get your perspective on is mental health in the workplace isn't a new concept. I mean, it's certainly not where it needs to be, but there's a growing focus on it, and a lot of organisations have got something in place. And you mentioned EAP schemes, and I wonder what your view is about revisiting whether something's actually working for the business and whether it's financially viable. So I'll give you an example. One organisation that I worked for when I was still working in human resources, we had an EAP scheme, and yet the contact centre of the business, their average number of sick days were 10 days per employee. And we were spending £400,000 a year on, I know, listeners cannot see Helga's face, her jaws just hit the ground. Absolutely, that was my response. We're spending £400,000 a year on sickness absence, and that was just the contact centre, that wasn't the whole business. And at the time, I was sort of starting to get into the field of health and well-being, and I thought, there's something that's not working here. We're spending all this money on an EAP scheme, but it's clearly not delivering what we need it to deliver. maybe we need to do something around prevention over cure. So what's your thoughts about, doing that sort of assessment of what's working and what's maybe not working financially in terms of what an organisation might have in place?
I always come back to the data. And again, you can look at the amount of money that you're spending on a contract, and when those contracts are coming up for renewal, you very much should be having a look at what has happened over the period of that, maybe over the 12 months or the period of that contract. And if you decided that you'd spent the money a year or two ago, you were going to invest, you would have set some measures by which you'd measure success. And I'd always go back to, well, what was it that we wanted to get out of the money that we were spending, and have we seen what we expected to see? And I'll call it a back test, but did you get the outcome that you expected? And if you didn't, then I'd want to reevaluate where we were spending the money, and I'd want to know, well, what could we do different with the money that we've got to get the outcome that we wanted? Mm-hmm. So I'd encourage that.
So we know that the health and wellbeing spectrum is huge, and for some of the listeners, they might be thinking, where do I actually start? They might be really inspired thinking, yeah, actually this is a real win-win for both individuals and for bottom line performance. And I know myself from the recent research that was done by The Economist and the future of work and digital wellbeing, which I was very delighted to be a contributor to. There was these kind of questions kicking around about, where does an organisation need to start? Does it need to start top down, looking at management mental health in the workplace? Does it need to start bottom up? What's your kind of thoughts?
You're right, Sarah. It is a vast field, and as an organisation and somebody who's a decision maker, it can be quite tough to decide where you are going to invest the money for the most benefit. My experience is that you probably need to do a few things, a bit of everything. I certainly advocate providing training to the decision makers and managers of people, and making sure that they have the support to kind of identify signs of any wellbeing issues within their teams. But I'd also look to provide all employees with some assistance. Otherwise, if you just provide it into the management and the decision makers, it's very targeted and you may miss people. Mm-hmm. Not everybody is going to show signs of kind of some well-being issues. Yeah. People do hide those, and sometimes they just, you have seen it, unfortunately, that people just break. So I'd encourage companies to think about spending money on all their employees, and you can decide how much you want to spend and how deep your pockets are and how kind of full that support is. But certainly my experience is that by having every employee touched at some point during the year and having an ongoing programme of assistance, you will provide the best support and then get the best returns. And you'll see that coming through the data. That's certainly my experience.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right when it's coming back to the data, because it's where is the organisation now, kind of where's the bleeding necks in terms of what do people need immediately to help them to reboot. People's spare capacity has been so, as you said earlier, stretched that you've got some people that are literally on their knees. So it's kind of what do we need to do for them right now, but then what does that wider program look like? Because you might have touch points, say for example, training around menopause in the workplace, prostate health. There's so many things that can be covered on that health and wellbeing spectrum, but we don't need to do it all right now. It's that consistent drip feed that touches all those parts of the wellbeing spectrum, isn't it?
It is, Sarah.
So I guess in summary, what we're saying, so an HR person, as a somebody that's producing these business cases, that's going to the scary CFOs, it's a bit like Oliver Twist, please sir, can I have some more money? That it's all about coming back to what's the data telling you, but maybe not just looking at the HR statistical data, but the wider business. What are the red flags? What are the operational risks? What's the risk to the brand, to customer service, to their ability to deliver, and looking at the cost? Is that kind of what we're saying in a summary?
It is, yes. I'd always encourage any business case to look at the big picture of a company and to describe the impact that not having good workplace health is having, and what the investment will deliver in terms of benefits to an organisation of having a healthy business.
Absolutely, and I love that actually. What is the impact if we don't do anything? Because we often focus on the benefits of doing something, but actually what is the worst case scenario if we just continue without investing in this crucial area? Helga, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute joy. We will look forward to hearing some of your other top tips in future podcasts. Thank you everybody for listening. I hope that that's been of benefit for you. And you can join us next week, where we will be sharing with you 4 strategies to support the mental health and well-being of your people if you are a manager that is responsible for managing mental health in the workplace. But thank you for now. Thank you for listening. Do get in touch with us with any questions, or in fact, if you want to find out how we can support you further, at www.themindsolution.com. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye for now.